Hello, everybody. Mr. Hospital Bed here, back with another questions and answers for hospital beds. And we get questions all the time from people about hospital beds, and some are kind of funny and some are kind of serious. And today we're going to talk about a few of the questions. The first question is, do hospital beds fit in elevators? So this is actually a great question because we just recently delivered 6 hospital beds to a big nursing school up in Northern Virginia. And those beds had to go, well, they had two choices. They could go up 3 flights of stairs, they could go up an elevator. Um, what I did, or what I'm going to do when this video gets published, is I'm going to show you a picture of our warehouses and the way we stack hospital beds. So when we get beds, we zip tie them, close them up, and we stand them straight up and down. And so when you're in an elevator and there's not as much space to go deep into it, we can lift the bed straight up and stand them up. Now, not every elevator, but the majority of the time, yes, we can get these beds in elevators. And so the measurements that are key, obviously, are going to be the measurements for the door, and it's going to be the depth of the elevator. And then just as important is going to be the height. And so the height will tell us how far in we can get it and then how high up we can lift it. And it could go in at an angle. Um, we could get it up and then have a couple guys just holding it while, somebody else goes up the stairs, meets them, and then helps them get it back down again. But elevators, for the most part, are going to be something that we can get a bed in. Some exceptions would be elevators that are in homes. So some homes now have elevators in them to help, people with maybe disabilities get up and down and get avoid the stairs. So there can be some elevators that are really tight. But as a general rule of thumb, yes, we can get beds in elevators. Now, if we run across situations where it's really tight, um, there's a secure three. I've actually, let's see, right here is a secure 3 bed. And then we've got, do I have the Versacare? I have the Versacare bed over there with the pillows on it. Um, the Versacare bed, there are some bed models where the foot section shrinks in. So on a Versacare bed, on Progressive beds, on some of these bed models, the foot section can shrink in about 10 inches. So you can, 8 inches, excuse me. So you can go from 90 inches to 82. So if it gets really tight, in some cases, what we might do is we might say, okay, hey, what we're going to do is switch the bed model and find a bed that we can compress down a little bit easier. And this also has to do with delivering beds into homes where there's really tight hallways. So a lot of times, people say, look, the bed is really tight. I don't think it's going to go around the corner. And in most cases, they're probably right. But what we can do is stand the bed up. Now, we'll stand the bed up on blankets. And then once we stand it up on the blankets and get it, we'll have somebody inside the door that'll pull the blanket and bring the lower half of the bed into the room while the top half starts to come down, and then have a couple people there to catch it. So, with that being said, there are many cases where in very tight corners we can stand beds up, and in hospital settings, we don't have to worry about that because the elevators are spec'd out for a hospital bed. But for apartments, especially a lot of stuff up in New York, New Jersey, where there's a lot of apartments up there and a lot of people living in high rises, there are many times that we are able to get the beds in there. So, we can get the dimensions. The dimensions of the elevator obviously will help a lot. But I would say 85 to 90% of the time, yes, we can get beds into elevators. It does take, special guys that kind of know this stuff well. But as a company that deals with beds by the thousands and standing them up and having, 400 beds in a warehouse that have all been stood straight up and down, this is something that we do quite a bit. The interesting thing is that the previous company that sold the beds to this nursing school, they did not know how to do that. They were not equipped to do that. And they basically brought 6 beds up 3 flights of stairs, which to me is, it's crazy because these beds weigh 500 pounds. So bringing 500-pound beds up 3 flights of stairs is definitely not something that we're, going to be, thrilled to do. And knowing how we can get the beds, how we can move them makes it a lot easier. So a job that took another company all day took us less than 2 hours to get 6 beds in. And we took out the 6 beds that were there previously. Basically zip tied the bed, stood them up, brought one down, took the other one up, vice versa. And within 2 hours, we had every one of the beds in and all the old beds out. So if you're in nursing school and you've got elevators, or you're a surgery center, or a lot of medical places now are actually in office buildings that were not spec'd out to basically uh, deal with beds, but we can still work around that. If for anybody that doesn't know, we do have a video on YouTube on how to get a hospital bed through a door, which is really also pretty easy. It's you lower the bed all the way down, zip tie it shut, tip it on its side. Depending on the bed, you can put it on either dollies or blankets. If it's a progressive bed, you probably want it on blankets because it's a heavy bed and the rails are not going to support the weight of the bed on the rail. Whereas with the Secure 3 of VersaCare, those beds are tanks. There's not a lot of electronics in the rails. There's not touch screens and, all the other functions. So those you can basically tip over sideways. But if you do it right, there's a lot of different ways it can be done. But with all that being said, that was our first video for the day. Can a hospital bed fit in an elevator? If you're looking for hospital beds and you're in a house that has elevators, now the other part of that also actually that I forgot is that let's say that it really is too tight, or you are in a home that has a really small elevator, then what we can do is we can get home care beds that break down into pieces. So the goal normally is to get a regular hospital bed in because the people looking for these types of beds normally need hospital grade care. But in a situation where it's going to be too tight, or it's going to be too much of a pain to deal with, then what we can do is we can go with like a drive bed. They've got these really great LTC beds, long-term care, and they're solid. They have almost all the same features that a regular hospital bed will, but they will come in pieces, and so you can bring them in pieces and make it a lot easier to get the bed into the home. So do beds fit in elevators? A lot of traditional beds do. And it'll depend obviously, but if they don't, there's always other options. So Mr. Hospital Bed answering your questions, sharing some of the daily calls that we get here. And if you have any questions, you can reach us, San Diego, California, 858-263-4894. Gloria Flores is out there, over 15 years of experience selling beds. I'm out in our Richmond, Virginia location, 804-495-0770. Give us a call. We'd love to talk to you. We can help find the best hospital bed for you. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe and share, and we'll see you on the next one.